The distress signal peers through the cosmic void like a desperate scream, its quantum-encrypted frequencies bouncing off relay stations across three-star systems before finally reaching the outer rim monitoring station of the Terran Defense Network. Lieutenant Sarah Chun nearly choked on her synthetic coffee as the emergency protocols activated, bathing her small monitoring booth in pulsing red light. "What the hell?" she muttered, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface as she tried to decode the incoming transmission. The signal was unlike anything in the human databases, a complex weaving of mathematical progressions and harmonic frequencies that seemed to bypass traditional communication methods entirely. It felt almost like music, if music could carry the weight of absolute terror. The translation algorithms worked frantically, parsing through thousands of potential linguistic matrices before finally producing something resembling coherent text. What appeared on Sarah's screen made her blood run cold. "This is Captain Zexhai of the Veltar research vessel Luminous Dawn. We are under attack by the Krovar Empire. Our ship is failing. Our people are dying. We broadcast this message to any civilized species who might hear our plea. The Krovar have broken the galactic concordat. They slaughter all who oppose their expansion. We do not know your people, distant ones, but we beg for help. The coordinates of our location follow. If anyone receives this, please, we have children aboard." The transmission cut to static, leaving Sarah staring at the screen in stunned silence. First contact. After centuries of searching, listening, hoping, this was how humanity would meet its cosmic neighbors. Not through peaceful exploration or diplomatic channels, but through a desperate cry for help from a dying ship. She immediately forwarded the signal to command, her hands shaking as she typed the priority classification codes. Within minutes, her comm unit exploded with activity as every major military installation in the Sol system came online simultaneously. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the Situation Room of Luna Command, his weathered face grim as he studied the tactical displays surrounding him. The alien signal had been verified, cross-referenced, and analyzed by the best xenolinguistic teams humanity could muster. The message was genuine, the coordinates were real, and, according to their deep space sensors, there was indeed a massive energy signature at the specified location, along with what appeared to be weapons fire. "How far out are we talking, Admiral?" asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, the head of the Xenological Research Division. Her scientific excitement was barely contained despite the grim circumstances. 47 light years, Webb replied, his voice carrying the weight of command decisions. "The signal took 47 years to reach us. For all we know, we're already too late. But we have to try," insisted General Harrison Clark from the Army's Special Operations Division. "If there are survivors, if this Krovar Empire is really expanding this direction." Admiral Webb nodded slowly. The implications were staggering. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe, but they'd also prepared for the possibility that they weren't. The Terran Defense Network wasn't just designed to protect against human threats. It was built with the assumption that someday, somewhere, humanity might encounter hostile alien forces. "What assets do we have available for immediate deployment?" Webb asked his aide. Commander Jessica Martinez pulled up the fleet roster on the main display. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is currently on maneuvers near Proxima Centauri. They could be retasked and ready for jump in 18 hours. We've got 12 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers for battleships, and the carrier Defiant. Full complement of Marines and support craft. What about the new ships? The ones with the experimental drives? Martinez hesitated. The Retribution and her sister ships are still in their shakedown phase, sir. The quantum displacement drives haven't been tested in actual combat conditions. Admiral Webb studied the tactical display, weighing his options. The experimental ships represented humanity's latest technological achievement. Vessels capable of traveling vast distances in a fraction of the time required by conventional faster-than-light drives. But they were untested and proven in the harsh realities of space combat. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez spoke up, her voice urgent. We have to consider the bigger picture here. This isn't just about rescuing one ship. This is about how humanity presents itself to the galaxy. This is our first impression on the cosmic stage. She's right, General Clark added. If we do nothing, we're signaling that Earth is either incapable or unwilling to help. But if we respond with force, we send a different message entirely. Webb finished. He turned to his communications officer. Give me a direct line to the president. And start preparing the Third Fleet for immediate deployment. Full war configuration. As the orders went out across the solar system, humanity began its first mobilization against an alien threat. Shipyards that had been building exploration vessels quickly retooled for military production. Space Marines who had trained for hypothetical scenarios suddenly found themselves preparing for real alien combat. The entire species held its breath as their representatives prepared to answer the call of strangers among the stars. Captain David Reynolds of the heavy cruiser Normandy received his orders while his ship was docked at the Europa Naval Station. A 20-year veteran of the Space Navy, Reynolds had seen his share of conflicts: pirates in the asteroid belt, rebellions on the outer colonies, territorial disputes over resource-rich moons. But this was something entirely different. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's intercom. We've just received orders for immediate deployment to an unknown star system. Our mission is to investigate an alien distress call and provide assistance if possible. This is not a drill. We are officially making first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. The reaction throughout the ship was instantaneous. In the engineering section, Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez dropped his plasma torch and stared at the intercom speaker. In the Marine barracks, Sergeant Williams felt his heart rate spike as he processed the implications. In the medical bay, Dr. Patterson began mentally cataloging what she knew about treating potential alien physiologies. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Price, the ship's executive officer, approached Reynolds on the bridge. The crew is asking questions I don't have answers for. What do we know about these aliens? What about the hostiles? Reynolds pulled up the classified briefing materials on his personal display. The friendlies call themselves the Veltar. Apparently, they're part of something called the Galactic Concordat. Think of it as a cosmic United Nations. The hostiles are the Krovar Empire, and from what little intelligence we've gathered, they're expanding aggressively through this region of space. Any idea what we're walking into in terms of technology? Unknown. But Command is operating under the assumption that any species capable of interstellar travel and quantum communication is at least as advanced as we are, possibly more so. Price nodded grimly. And if the Krovar Empire has been conquering other species, then they probably have access to multiple technological bases, Reynolds finished. Which means we need to be ready for anything. The Third Expeditionary Fleet assembled at the edge of the Sol System's heliopause. 13 ships representing the finest vessels in humanity's space navy. The flagship Defiant, a massive carrier bristling with fighter craft and ground assault ships, took point position. Behind her, the battleships Constitution, Enterprise, Victory, and Sovereign formed the main battle line, their heavy weapons systems powered up and ready. Admiral Webb transferred his flag to the Defiant for the mission, bringing with him a full command staff and a team of xenological specialists. As he stood on the carrier's bridge, looking out at the assembled fleet, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Whatever happened in the next few days would determine humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. Admiral, reported Captain Elizabeth Shaw, the Defiant's commanding officer. All ships report ready for jump. Course is laid in for the Veltar coordinates. Webb nodded. Signal all ships. Humanity's first interstellar rescue mission begins now. The fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives simultaneously, tearing holes in the fabric of space-time as they began their journey toward the unknown. Behind them, Earth continued its rotation, unaware that their representatives were racing toward a confrontation that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked frantically in her temporary laboratory aboard the Defiant, trying to prepare for every possible scenario they might encounter. Her team had managed to glean some additional information from the alien distress signal, linguistic patterns that suggested a highly advanced mathematical understanding, harmonic frequencies that indicated a species with exceptional auditory capabilities, and underlying quantum signatures that spoke of technology beyond current human comprehension. Her assistant, Dr. James Morrison, looked up from his analysis station. "I'm seeing something interesting in the communication protocols. The signal wasn't just directed at us. It was broadcast omnidirectionally across multiple frequency ranges. They weren't trying to contact humans specifically. They were calling out to anyone who might be listening." Vasquez studied the data he was showing her, which suggests they don't know we exist. This truly is first contact from both sides. "But there's more," Morrison continued. "The mathematical progressions embedded in their language structure suggest a base 8 counting system, which implies 8 digits or appendages. The harmonic patterns indicate communication that incorporates both audible and subsonic frequencies. And the quantum encryption, what about it? It's incredibly sophisticated, more advanced than anything we've developed. But the interesting thing is that it's also incomplete." Vasquez frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that the encryption has deliberate weaknesses built into it. Almost like they wanted it to be breakable by anyone with sufficient mathematical knowledge. They made it just hard enough to prove intelligence, but not so hard as to be impossible to decode." The implications sent a chill down Vasquez's spine. They've done this before. They've reached out to unknown species and needed a way to prove they were intelligent while still making their message accessible. Which means Morrison concluded that the galaxy is a lot more populated than we thought, and apparently a lot more dangerous. As the human fleet raced through the void toward their destiny, the crew members tried to process the magnitude of what they were undertaking. In the fighter squadrons, pilots ran endless simulations against hypothetical alien craft. In the Marine barracks, soldiers studied tactical analyses of potential boarding operations against unknown ship designs. In the medical bays, doctors prepared for the possibility of treating injuries from weapons that didn't exist in any human database. Captain Reynolds found himself unable to sleep during the journey, spending his off-duty hours studying everything the xenological teams had managed to piece together about their potential enemies. The Krovar Empire remained largely mysterious, but certain details had emerged from the linguistic analysis of the distress call. They were described as an empire, suggesting a hierarchical, authoritarian structure. They had broken the Galactic Concordat, which implied they had once been part of a larger peaceful organization, but had chosen conquest over cooperation. Most disturbing of all, they apparently slaughtered all who opposed their expansion, suggesting a level of ruthlessness that made human historical conflicts seem tame by comparison. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Price found him in his ready room, staring out at the starfield racing past the viewport. "We'll be dropping out of FTL in 6 hours. The crew is as ready as they can be, but we're flying blind into a situation we don't understand, against enemies we know nothing about, to rescue people we've never met," Reynolds finished. "I know, Sarah. I know. Do you really think we can make a difference? Our ships are powerful, but we don't even know what we're up against." Reynolds turned from a viewport to face his executive officer. "You know what I keep thinking about? That line in their message, 'We have children aboard.' Whatever these Veltar are, whatever they look like, however different they might be from us, they care about their young. They protect their families. That tells me everything I need to know about whether they're worth saving." Price nodded slowly. "And the Krovar? Anyone who would attack a ship full of children." Reynolds's expression hardened. "Well, I guess we'll show them what happens when you threaten kids in front of humans." The fleet continued its journey through the endless night, carrying with it the hopes, fears, and determination of an entire species taking its first steps onto the galactic stage. Behind them, Earth turned peacefully in its orbit, unaware that in a few short hours, the course of galactic history would be changed forever by a handful of human ships answering a desperate call for help from across the stars. In the depths of space, moving at velocities that bent the laws of physics, humanity raced toward its destiny, and toward a confrontation that would announce their presence to the galaxy in terms that no one could ignore or forget. The Third Expeditionary Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an unknown star system, their sensors immediately painting a picture of devastation that left even veteran officers speechless. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as the tactical displays populated with data that told a story of systematic destruction spanning multiple worlds. "Report," he ordered, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Torres at the sensor station struggled to keep his voice steady. "I'm reading the debris signatures of at least 30 vessels scattered across this system. Most appear to be civilian craft, transports, research vessels, maybe some light escorts. They've been completely destroyed." Captain Shaw moved to Webb's side, her face pale as she studied the readouts. "Admiral, the Krovar force appears to be concentrated around the fourth planet. I'm reading massive energy signatures. Looks like they're conducting orbital bombardment operations." Dr. Vasquez, monitoring communications from her position near the science station, suddenly straightened. "Admiral, I'm picking up active transmissions. The Veltar ship, some of them are still alive." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of ship systems as Webb processed this information. After 47 years of travel time for the original distress signal, followed by humanity's journey to this system, the fact that anyone was still alive seemed miraculous. "Can you clean up the signal?" Webb asked. Vasquez worked frantically at her console, filtering through interference and quantum static. Slowly, a voice emerged from the chaos. Alien, but unmistakably desperate and intelligent. "Anyone who can hear this transmission. This is Science Coordinator Zeth Kai, aboard the research vessel Luminous Dawn. We have been under siege for 6 standard cycles. The Krovar fleet has destroyed our escorts and is systematically hunting the survivors. Our defensive shields are failing. We have 43 crew members still alive, including 12 juveniles. If any Concordat forces receive this message." The transmission dissolved into static as something in the background exploded with tremendous force. Admiral Webb felt a cold fury building in his chest, not just because of the attack on civilians, but because of what the communications intercepts were revealing about the attackers. The Krovar Transmissions' linguistic team was decoding painted a picture of systematic genocide, with references to cleansing and inferior species that reminded him uncomfortably of humanity's own dark historical periods. "Captain Shaw, deploy the fleet in standard intervention formation. All ships to battle stations." "Sir." Commander Martinez approached with a tactical assessment. Long-range sensors are showing the Krovar force as approximately 20 vessels of unknown configuration. They appear to be conducting a methodical search pattern around the gas giant's moon system. "And our tactical analysis?" "Unknown, sir. We have no baseline for comparison with their technology." "But," she hesitated. "But what?" "Sir, they're not running any kind of sensor stealth. No electronic countermeasures. No attempt to mask their positions. Either they're incredibly arrogant, or they've never encountered opposition that required such precautions." Admiral Webb studied the tactical display, noting the casual formation of the enemy's ships. Or they become so accustomed to overwhelming technological superiority that they don't bother with tactical subtlety anymore. As the human fleet moved deeper into the system, more details emerged about the scope of the Krovar operation. This wasn't just an attack on a single research vessel. It was the systematic annihilation of an entire scientific expedition. Debris analysis revealed the remains of archaeological survey ships, biological research platforms, and even what appeared to be a small diplomatic vessel. Captain Reynolds aboard the Normandy studied the intelligence reports with growing anger. The Veltar expedition had been conducting peaceful research into some kind of ancient ruins on one of the system's inner planets. They had broadcast their research intentions on all standard frequencies, following what appear to be established galactic protocols for scientific endeavors. The Crovar response had been to simply destroy everything. Weapons status, Reynolds ordered. All systems online, sir, reported Lieutenant Jackson from the tactical station. Railguns charged, torpedo tubes loaded, point defense systems active. Sir, his communications officer looked up with confusion. I'm receiving some kind of automated transmission from the Crovar fleet. It appears to be in heavily accented galactic standard. Reynolds exchanged glances with his executive officer. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was harsh, mechanical, and filled with casual contempt. Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in claimed Crovar space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This sector is being cleansed of inferior species as part of the Great Expansion. Your primitive ships are not welcome here. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence. The casual dismissal of human capability was almost more insulting than the threat itself. Sir, Price leaned over to Reynolds. They're assuming we're some kind of local species. They don't know what we are. Reynolds keyed his microphone. Crovar vessels. This is Captain David Reynolds of the Terran Space Navy. You are conducting unprovoked attacks against civilian targets. Stand down immediately and prepare to be taken into custody. The response came back almost immediately, filled with what sounded suspiciously like laughter. Terrans? Another pathetic species seeking to delay the inevitable. Your ship designs are crude, your transmissions are primitive, and your demands are amusing. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Throughout the human fleet, similar exchanges were taking place as individual Crovar ship commanders made contact with their counterparts. The pattern was always the same: casual contempt, assumptions of technological superiority, and threats of immediate destruction. Admiral Webb listened to the communications chatter and felt something cold settle in his stomach. These beings didn't just see themselves as conquerors. They genuinely believed that other species were inherently inferior and deserved extinction. It was a mindset that humanity knew all too well from its own history. Dr. Vasquez, he called to the xenological team. Are you getting anything useful from their communications? Yes, sir, and it's disturbing, she replied, not looking up from her analysis station. Their language patterns suggest a highly stratified society with rigid hierarchical thinking. But more concerning are the casual references to other species they've encountered. Based on linguistic analysis, they've been conducting this kind of cleansing operation for a significant period of time. How significant? Sir, I'm seeing references to at least 12 different species in their tactical communications, all discussed in past tense, all described as cleansed or processed. The implications sent a chill through everyone on the bridge. The Crovar weren't just attacking the Veltar research expedition. They were conducting systematic genocide across multiple star systems, possibly across the entire galaxy. Admiral, Captain Shaw reported, long-range sensors are showing the Veltar survivor ship. It's badly damaged and appears to be hiding in the asteroid field around the seventh moon of the gas giant. The Crovar search pattern suggests they haven't located it yet. Webb studied the tactical display. The human fleet was still hours away from the battle zone, but the Crovar ships were methodically working their way through the asteroid field. It was only a matter of time before they found their prey. Can we reach them in time? Uncertain, sir. The Crovar are conducting a systematic search, but they're being thorough. If we push the engines beyond safe parameters, do it. As the human fleet accelerated toward the inner system, pushing their engines to maximum capability, Admiral Webb opened a fleet-wide channel. It was time to address his crews about what they were really facing. All hands, this is Admiral Webb. In the next few hours, we're going to engage an enemy that represents everything humanity has fought against throughout our history. The Crovar Empire conducts systematic genocide as a matter of policy. They view other species as inherently inferior and deserving of extinction. They have apparently been conducting these operations across multiple star systems for an extended period. He paused, looking around at the faces on his bridge. Humans from every corner of Earth's solar system. united by a common purpose. But there's something the Krovar don't understand about humans. We didn't climb to the top of our food chain by being the strongest or the fastest. We got there by being the most stubborn, the most adaptive, and the most vicious when something threatens our pack. And today our pack includes every civilian on that Veltar ship. The response came back immediately from ship after ship. Acknowledgements, battle cries, and expressions of determination that would have done credit to any warrior culture in human history. Captain Reynolds felt the familiar pre-battle calm settling over him as the Normandy raced toward combat. His crew was ready, his ship was ready, and his conscience was clear. The Krovar had made their intentions perfectly obvious. They intended to murder everyone who wasn't them. It was the kind of simple moral equation that humanity understood perfectly. Tactical analysis of enemy formations, he ordered. Sir, the Krovar ships appear to be operating in hunting packs of 3 to 4 vessels. They're spread out across the asteroid field in what looks like a standard search pattern. No apparent coordination between groups beyond basic communication. That's their first mistake, Reynolds muttered. The Krovar were treating this like a police action rather than a military operation. They were so confident in their technological superiority that they weren't taking basic tactical precautions. Sir, Lieutenant Jackson at Weapons Control spoke up. Engineering reports all weapons systems are functioning at 110% of normal capacity. Chief Rodriguez says he's tweaked a few things and wants the Krovar to know what human engineering can do when we're properly motivated. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes were playing out as crews prepared for humanity's first interstellar battle. In the fighter bays of the Defiant, pilots ran final checks on their combat craft, knowing they would soon face alien fighters with unknown capabilities. In the Marine barracks, soldiers checked and rechecked equipment that had been designed for fighting humans, but would soon be tested against utterly alien opponents. Dr. Vasquez continued monitoring Krovar communications, building a clearer picture of their enemy with each intercepted transmission. The Krovar military appeared to be highly disciplined, but also rigid in their thinking. They operated according to established doctrines that assumed technological superiority and enemy inferiority. It was exactly the kind of inflexible mindset that human military doctrine was designed to exploit. Admiral, she reported, I'm seeing patterns in their communications that suggest they've never encountered effective resistance. Their tactical discussions assume that any opposition will crumble quickly once they demonstrate their weapons capability. They're about to learn differently, Webb replied grimly. As the human fleet closed the distance to the battle zone, the first visual images of Krovar vessels began appearing on the main displays. The enemy ships were sleek, angular constructs that seemed to blend organic curves with geometric precision. They moved through space with an almost predatory grace, their dark hulls absorbing most electromagnetic radiation while their weapons systems glowed with ominous energy. Beautiful ships, Captain Shaw observed quietly. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful ships, Admiral Webb agreed. Operated by monsters. The final approach to battle began as the human fleet spread out into attack formation, each ship taking its assigned position in a complex dance of war that had been practiced countless times in simulations but never executed against alien opponents. Behind them, Earth was just another star in the endless night. Ahead of them, the Krovar Empire was about to discover that the galaxy contained at least one species that would not go quietly into extinction. The battle for the Veltar survivors was about to begin, and, with it, humanity's violent introduction to the broader galactic community. The first shots of humanity's introduction to galactic warfare came not from the massive battleships or heavily armed cruisers, but from a single Krovar patrol vessel that stumbled across the human fleet's advanced scouts. The destroyer Ranger, commanded by Captain Maria Santos, had been conducting a wide reconnaissance sweep when the alien ship materialized out of the asteroid field like a predator emerging from tall grass. Contact bearing 27 Mark V, reported Ensign Kim at the sensor station, her voice tight with excitement and fear. Single vessel, Unknown configuration. Moving to intercept. Captain Santos studied the tactical display, watching as the alien ship's approach vector resolved into something that could only be described as contemptuous. The Crovar vessel was approaching directly, with no attempt at stealth or tactical maneuvering, as if the very idea that the human ship might pose a threat was beneath consideration. Weapons status, Santos ordered. All systems online and ready, ma'am, replied Lieutenant Commander Walsh from Tactical. Target is within range of our forward railguns. The Crovar ship opened communications first, broadcasting on multiple frequencies with the same mechanical arrogance they had displayed earlier. Primitive vessel, you will surrender immediately for processing. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. Santos felt her jaw clench. Throughout her career, she had faced pirates, terrorists, and rogue military units, but she had never encountered such casual dismissal of human capability. Communications, open a channel. Channel open, ma'am. Crovar vessel, this is Captain Maria Santos of the Terran Space Navy Destroyer Ranger. You're ordered to stand down and prepare to be boarded. The response came back immediately, filled with what could only be described as alien laughter. Terran primitives, your crewed vessel is no match for Crovar superiority. Observe and despair. The alien ship's weapons suddenly blazed to life, sending streams of coherent energy racing across space toward the Ranger. Captain Santos watched the incoming fire with professional interest, noting the weapon characteristics and approach vectors even as her ship's defensive systems engaged automatically. Evasive maneuvers, she ordered calmly. Return fire. The Ranger twisted through space with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large, her inertial dampeners working at maximum capacity as she avoided the worst of the enemy fire. The Crovar energy beams that did connect with her hull splashed harmlessly against advanced ablative armor designed to dissipate exactly this type of attack. At the same time, the destroyer's forward rail guns spoke with voices of thunder, sending streams of hypersonic projectiles racing toward the alien vessel at significant fractions of light speed. The Crovar ship's defensive systems, designed to counter energy weapons and conventional missiles, proved utterly inadequate against kinetic projectiles moving at such velocities. The first impact sent shockwaves through the alien vessel's hull, buckling armor plates and sending debris spinning into space. The Crovar ship immediately began evasive maneuvers, but Captain Santos had been hunting pirates and raiders for 15 years. She knew how to track a target. Target their engine section, she ordered. Let's see how superior they feel when they're dead in space. The next railgun salvo was precisely targeted, the hypersonic projectiles punching through the alien ship's rear armor and into critical systems. The Crovar vessel's elegant curves suddenly became liabilities as secondary explosions ripped through its hull, sending cascading system failures throughout the ship. Within minutes of first contact, the alien vessel was drifting powerless through space, its hull breached in multiple locations, and its crew presumably dead or dying. Ma'am, Ensign Kim reported with obvious amazement, target has been neutralized. No response to hails, no energy signatures detected. Captain Santos stared at the tactical display, processing what had just happened. Humanity's first encounter with hostile alien technology had resulted in a complete victory achieved in less than 5 minutes of actual combat. Either they had gotten incredibly lucky, or the Crovar technological superiority was not what it appeared to be. Send a full tactical report to Fleet Command, she ordered. Include detailed sensor readings of enemy weapons and defensive capabilities, and begin recovery operations on alien debris. Intelligence is going to want to examine everything. Throughout the human fleet, the news of the Rangers' victory spread like wildfire, transmitted on encrypted channels that buzzed with excitement and speculation. Admiral Webb received the report while his ships were still approaching the main battle zone, and he found himself studying the tactical analysis with growing amazement. Dr. Vasquez, he called to the xenological team. What do you make of this? The scientist reviewed the combat data with the intensity of someone trying to solve a critical puzzle. Admiral, the Krovar weapons appear to be highly sophisticated directed energy systems, but they're designed around completely different tactical assumptions than human weapons. Explain. Sir, their energy beams are incredibly precise and efficient, but they're optimized for penetrating energy shields and disrupting electronic systems. They appear to have no experience fighting opponents who rely primarily on physical armor and kinetic weapons. Admiral Webb nodded slowly, beginning to understand the implications. They become specialized for fighting enemies who use similar technology to their own. Exactly, sir. And there's something else. The destroyed Krovar ship's hull composition suggests they've been building their vessels for speed and maneuverability rather than survivability. They're designed to outrun or outmaneuver opponents, not to absorb damage, which means they've never faced opponents who could match their maneuverability or who relied on weapons that couldn't be dodged. As the human fleet approached the main Krovar formation, Admiral Webb began to develop a clearer picture of what they were facing. The alien empire had apparently achieved dominance through technological superiority and overwhelming firepower, but they had done so against opponents who fought using similar methods. They had never encountered an enemy who approached warfare from fundamentally different assumptions. All ships, he broadcast across the fleet, were facing an enemy that has become accustomed to easy victories against technologically similar opponents. They expect us to fight like everyone else they've encountered. Our advantage lies in doing exactly what they don't expect. Captain Reynolds received the Admiral's transmission while studying the tactical situation around the gas giant's moon system. The Krovar search formation was spread across multiple asteroid fields, with individual hunting groups operating independently while maintaining loose communication. It was exactly the kind of distributed deployment that human doctrine was designed to exploit. Sarah, he called to his executive officer, what's our assessment of enemy coordination? Lieutenant Commander Price reviewed the intelligence reports. Sir, the Krovar appear to be operating under the assumption that any resistance will be localized and easily overwhelmed by individual hunting groups. They're not maintaining mutual support distances, and their communication protocols suggest they're not expecting coordinated opposition. Perfect, Reynolds muttered. The enemy was treating this like a police action rather than a military operation, which meant they were vulnerable to exactly the kind of coordinated assault the human naval doctrine emphasized. Sir, Lieutenant Jackson at Tactical reported, we're approaching weapons range of the nearest Krovar hunting group. 3 vessels in loose formation, currently engaged in methodical search pattern around asteroid cluster 77 Alpha. Reynolds studied the tactical display, noting the enemy ship's positions and movement patterns. The Krovar were conducting their search with mechanical precision, following predetermined routes that showed no awareness of potential threats approaching from outside the asteroid field. Signal the Constitution and Enterprise, he ordered. Coordinate attack pattern Delta 7. We'll bracket them from 3 directions simultaneously. As the human ships maneuvered into attack positions, the Krovar hunting group continued their search, completely unaware that they were about to become the target of humanity's first coordinated naval engagement against alien opponents. The enemy vessels moved through the asteroid field with elegant grace, their sensors probing every shadow and crevice as they methodically hunted for Veltar survivors. The attack began with mathematical precision. The human ships emerged from concealment simultaneously, their approach vectors calculated to maximize confusion and minimize the enemy's ability to coordinate a response. Rail guns spoke across space in a coordinated symphony of destruction that the Krovar formation never saw coming. The lead Krovar vessel took the first hits, hypersonic projectiles punching through its hull armor and sending cascading system failures throughout the ship. The second alien ship began evasive maneuvers just as torpedo spreads from the Constitution reached their target, the nuclear warheads detonating in brilliant flashes that temporarily overwhelmed all sensors in the engagement zone. The third Krovar ship managed to return fire, its energy weapons reaching out toward the Normandy with deadly precision. But Captain Reynolds had been expecting exactly this response, and his ship was already executing evasive maneuvers that took advantage of the asteroid field's complex gravitational interactions. The enemy beams missed their target by hundreds of kilometers, dissipating harmlessly into space. "Target their command and control systems," Reynolds ordered. "Let's see how well they coordinate when they can't talk to each other." The Normandy's tactical officer had been studying the alien ship configurations throughout the approach, identifying what appeared to be communication arrays and sensor clusters. The next railgun salvo was precisely targeted, severing the connections between the surviving Krovar ships and leaving them operating independently. Within minutes of first contact, 2 of the 3 Krovar vessels had been reduced to drifting wreckage, while the third was attempting to flee the engagement zone with significant damage to its propulsion systems. It didn't make it far before torpedo spreads from the Enterprise finished the job. "Engagement complete," reported Lieutenant Commander Price, her voice filled with amazement. "All enemy vessels neutralized. No damage to fleet units." Similar reports were coming in from engagement zones throughout the asteroid field as human ship groups encountered and systematically destroyed Krovar hunting parties. The alien tactics that had proven effective against other galactic species were utterly inadequate against opponents who approached warfare from completely different philosophical foundations. Dr. Vasquez monitored Krovar communications throughout the battle, listening as confusion and disbelief replaced the casual arrogance that had characterized earlier transmissions. The aliens were trying to understand how their technologically superior vessels were being systematically destroyed by what they had initially dismissed as primitive opponents. "Admiral," she reported, "I'm detecting significant changes in enemy communication patterns. The surviving Krovar ships are requesting instructions from higher command authorities, and their tactical discussions suggest they're encountering resistance unlike anything in their experience." Admiral Webb nodded grimly. "They're learning that technological superiority means nothing if your tactics are based on false assumptions." As the systematic destruction of Krovar hunting parties continued throughout the asteroid field, the few surviving enemy vessels began attempting to withdraw from the engagement zone. But Admiral Webb had anticipated exactly this response, and human ships were already positioned to intercept any retreat attempts. "All ships," he broadcast across the fleet, "begin Phase 2 operations. No Krovar vessel leaves this system. We're going to send a message that the galaxy will remember. The hunter had become the hunted, and the Krovar Empire was about to learn why humans had earned their place at the apex of Earth's food chain. The systematic destruction of their expedition would serve as humanity's introduction to galactic politics, written in fire and wreckage across the void between stars." As the last Krovar hunting party was cornered and destroyed in the shadow of the gas giant's largest moon, Captain Reynolds found himself thinking about the casual contempt with which the aliens had initially addressed human demands. They had dismissed humanity as primitive, inferior, and unworthy of consideration. They would not make that mistake again. The battle for the asteroid field was ending, but the larger confrontation between human determination and alien arrogance had only just begun. The luminous dawn drifted in the shadow of a massive asteroid, her hull scarred by weeks of running battles and desperate escapes. Science Coordinator Zeth Kai floated in the ship's damage command center, her 4 arms working frantically at control interfaces while her large, multifaceted eyes monitored multiple displays simultaneously. The Veltar were a graceful species, evolved from ocean-dwelling creatures on a high-gravity world, and their natural buoyancy made them perfectly adapted to zero-gravity environments. But grace was little comfort when facing extinction. Coordinator called Navigator Hestin from his station, his normally melodious voice cracked with exhaustion. "I'm detecting massive energy discharges throughout the outer asteroid fields. The Krovar hunting parties appear to be under attack." Zethkai's head crest flared with surprise, an involuntary physiological response that had served her people well during millions of years of evolution, but now served only to express emotions she could barely process. Under attack? By whom? There are no concordat forces within 50 light-years of this system. Unknown, coordinator. But the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The attacks appear to be coordinated, with multiple unknown vessels engaging Crovar hunting groups simultaneously. Throughout the luminous dawn's cramped interior, the 43 surviving members of the research expedition listened to reports that seemed impossible. For the past 6 standard cycles, they had watched helplessly as Crovar forces systematically hunted down and destroyed every other ship in their scientific fleet. The aliens had shown no mercy, no interest in prisoners, and no willingness to acknowledge the Galactic Concordat's laws governing civilian research expeditions. Could it be the Ketheri? Asked junior researcher Velones, hope creeping into her voice. Perhaps they received our distress signals and mounted a rescue operation. Zethkai's crest drooped with sadness. The Ketheri were brave warriors, but their ships were no match for Crovar technology. No known Concordat species possessed the military capability to challenge a Crovar expeditionary force directly. Coordinator Heston's voice carried a note of wonder that made everyone in the command center turn toward his station. I'm receiving a transmission on emergency frequencies. It's directed specifically at us. Crovar demands for surrender? No, coordinate. It appears to be a rescue offer from the unknown attackers. Zethkai felt her swim bladders contract with shock. A rescue offer from an unknown species engaging Crovar forces? It seemed like a fantasy born of desperation and oxygen deprivation. Clean up the signal and put it through speakers, she ordered. The voice that emerged from the communication system was unlike anything in Veltar experience. Harsh consonants delivered in patterns that suggested a species with rigid jaw structures and limited vocal range compared to the melodious tones of aquatic species. But the mathematical translations were clear. Veltar Vessel Luminous Dawn. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran Space Navy. We received your distress signal and have engaged the Crovar forces threatening your ship. Maintain your current position and prepare for escort to safe distance. Be advised that we are not familiar with your species' physiological requirements, so please transmit any critical medical or environmental needs. The command center fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems struggling to maintain atmosphere in a ship that had been damaged far beyond its design tolerances. Zethkai floated motionless, trying to process what she had just heard. Vispirid Communications Specialist Ketar. I've never heard of a species called Terrans. Are they part of the Concordat? There are no Terrans in any Concordat records, Zethkai replied slowly. Which means, first contact, Velones finished. We're experiencing first contact with an unknown species, and they're fighting the Crovar to rescue us. The implications sent waves of emotional resonance through the assembled Veltar. First contact was supposed to be a carefully orchestrated affair, with diplomatic protocols, cultural exchange programs, and extensive preparation periods. It wasn't supposed to happen while hiding from genocidal maniacs in an asteroid field 47 light-years from the nearest Concordat world. Coordinator Heston reported, his voice filled with amazement. Long-range sensors are showing systematic destruction of Crovar hunting parties throughout the asteroid field. The unknown vessels, these Terrans, they're not just engaging the enemy. They're winning. Zethkai's crest stood fully erect, a sign of extreme agitation in her species. That's impossible. Crovar military technology is superior to any known Concordat species. Their ships are faster, their weapons are more powerful, and their tactics have proven effective against every opponent they've encountered. Nevertheless, Coordinator, the sensor readings are conclusive. Crovar vessels are being systematically destroyed, while the Terran ships appear to be taking minimal damage. As if to emphasize his point, a massive explosion lit up the space beyond their hiding place as another Krovar hunting party met its end at the hands of human tactical doctrine. The energy signature was unlike anything in Veltar databases. Not the elegant, coherent beams favored by most Concordat species, but brutal kinetic impacts that spoke of a fundamentally different approach to warfare. Coordinator, Kethar looked up from his station with expression of wonder. I'm receiving additional transmissions from the Terran Force. They're requesting information about our wounded and asking about environmental requirements for potential medical assistance. Zethkai found herself facing a decision that would echo through galactic history. These unknown Terrans had appeared as if summoned by their desperate prayers, engaged the Krovar forces with shocking effectiveness, and were now offering medical assistance to complete strangers. Every Concordat protocol suggested extreme caution when dealing with unknown species, especially ones that demonstrated such military capability. But her people were dying, the ship's life support was failing, and the Krovar had made it clear that surrender meant death for every member of her crew. Open a channel, she ordered. Full diplomatic protocols. The transmission that went out to the human fleet contained layers of mathematical harmony that served as universal greeting, followed by linguistic patterns designed to demonstrate intelligence and peaceful intent. But underneath the formal structure, Zethkai's message was simpler. Terran Admiral Webb, this is Science Coordinator Zethkai. We accept your offer of assistance. We have multiple injured crew members, and our life support systems are operating at 30% capacity. We thank you for answering our call. Admiral Webb received the Veltar response while standing on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as his forces systematically dismantled what remained of the Krovar expedition. The battle had been more one-sided than his most optimistic projections had suggested. Krovar technological superiority meant nothing when their tactics were predictable and their assumptions about enemy capabilities were fundamentally wrong. Dr. Vasquez, he called to the xenological team. Can you make sense of their physiological requirements? The scientist was working frantically at her analysis station, trying to decode the biological data the Veltar had transmitted along with their acceptance of assistance. Admiral, it appears they're an aquatic species adapted to high-gravity, high-pressure environments. They can survive in standard atmospheric conditions, but they require significantly higher humidity levels and pressure than human norms. The good news is that our life support systems can be adjusted to accommodate their needs. What about medical assistance? Unknown, sir. We have no baseline for their biology, but they've transmitted what appears to be basic physiological data and descriptions of their injuries. Dr. Patterson thinks she can work with their medical officer to provide assistance. Admiral Webb nodded, then opened a channel to the Veltar ship. Science Coordinator Zethkai, we're dispatching medical personnel and damage control teams to assist your vessel. Be advised that this is first contact between our species, so we'll need your guidance on proper interaction protocols. The response came back immediately, the alien voice carrying what human translators interpreted as profound gratitude. Admiral Webb, we understand this is unprecedented. We will provide any guidance necessary. And Admiral, on behalf of the Galactic Concordat, and my people specifically, thank you. The Krovar have been systematically exterminating any species that opposes their expansion. We thought we were going to die here. Not on my watch, Webb replied grimly. And now that we know they're out there, they're going to discover that humanity takes a very dim view of genocide. As human medical teams prepared to board the first alien vessel in Earth's history, reports were flowing in from across the asteroid field. The systematic destruction of Krovar forces was nearly complete, with only a few enemy vessels still operational and attempting to flee the system. But Admiral Webb had no intention of allowing any survivors to carry word of human capabilities back to the Krovar Empire. Captain Reynolds aboard the Normandy was pursuing the last fleeing Krovar vessel when his communications officer reported an interesting development. Sir, the fleeing Krovar ship is broadcasting on multiple frequencies. They appear to be attempting to contact higher command authorities. Can we jam their transmissions? Already doing so, sir. But the interesting thing is what they're trying to transmit. The linguistic team says they're sending detailed reports about human ship capabilities, weapon systems, and tactical doctrines. Reynolds studied the tactical display, watching as the damaged enemy vessel attempted to reach the system's edge where it could engage its faster-than-light drive. They want to warn their empire about us. Yes, sir. From what we can decode, they're describing human forces as unprecedented threat and unknown tactical paradigm. They're recommending immediate strategic reassessment of expansion plans. Too bad they won't get the chance to send it, Reynolds muttered. All weapons, target their communication arrays. Then finish them off. The final Krovar vessel died in silence, its warning message undelivered, and its crew's last thoughts focused on the terrifying realization that the galaxy contained at least one species that would not go quietly into extinction. As the human fleet regrouped around the damaged Veltar research vessel, first contact protocols that had existed only in theoretical discussions suddenly became critically important. Dr. Vasquez found herself serving as humanity's first xenological diplomat, working with science coordinator Zethkai to establish basic communication and cultural exchange procedures. The Veltar proved to be remarkably cooperative and intelligent, their scientific minds adapting quickly to the challenge of cross-species communication. Within hours of first contact, basic translation protocols have been established, cultural taboos have been identified and respected, and joint medical procedures have been implemented to save the lives of critically injured Veltar crew members. But it was the intelligence briefings that proved most significant. Science coordinator Zethkai had extensive knowledge of galactic concordat politics, Krovar expansion patterns, and the broader strategic situation facing civilized species throughout this region of space. What she revealed painted a picture that was both inspiring and terrifying. The galactic concordat represents 47 different species, she explained to Admiral Webb during their first formal meeting aboard the Defiant. We have maintained peace and cooperation for over 2,000 of your years. But the Krovar Empire has been expanding aggressively for the past century, and their military technology has proven superior to most Concordat defenses. Admiral Webb studied the star charts the Veltar had provided, noting the extent of Krovar expansion and the strategic implications for human space. How many species have they conquered? Zethkai's crest drooped with sadness. 12 confirmed extinctions in the past 50 years. Perhaps more that we don't know about. The Krovar don't take prisoners, Admiral. They don't establish puppet governments or demand tribute. They simply destroy everything that isn't them. And the Concordat's response? We've been fighting a losing battle. Krovar ships are faster, their weapons are more powerful, and their tactics have proven effective against every strategy we've attempted. Each Concordat species fights according to their own cultural and technological traditions, but the Krovar have learned to counter all of them. Admiral Webb exchanged glances with his staff officers. The strategic situation was becoming clear. The Krovar Empire represented an existential threat not just to individual species, but to the entire concept of galactic civilization. And they had been winning because their opponents fought according to predictable patterns. Science coordinator, he said slowly, how would the Concordat react to a proposal for joint military operations against the Krovar Empire? Zethkai's multifaceted eyes focused on him with laser intensity. Admiral, if your species is truly capable of defeating Krovar forces consistently, the Concordat would welcome any assistance. But I must warn you, the Krovar Empire commands resources from dozens of conquered star systems. What you destroyed here was merely a minor expeditionary force. Then, we'll deal with their major forces when we encounter them, Webb replied. But first, we need to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Concordat and share tactical intelligence about Krovar capabilities. As the human fleet prepared for its return journey to Earth, carrying with them representatives of an alien civilization and intelligence about a galaxy-spanning conflict, the broader implications of their intervention were already rippling outward. Other Concordat species would learn that the Veltar research expedition had been rescued by unknown aliens with superior military capabilities. Krovar High Command would note the disappearance of their expeditionary force and begin investigating the cause. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth had joined the conversation, and humanity's introduction to galactic politics had been written in fire, wreckage, and the systematic destruction of an enemy that had previously seemed invincible. Science Coordinator Zeth Kai floated in the observation deck of the human carrier Defiant, watching the stars wheel past as the joint human-Veltar fleet made its way toward Concordat space. Her people would recover from their ordeal, their research data had been preserved, and first contact had been successfully established with a species that might represent the galaxy's best hope against Krovar expansion. But as she studied the efficient, deadly grace with which human warships moved through space, she found herself wondering if the galaxy was ready for what humanity might bring to the ancient conflicts between the stars. The Krovar had ruled through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. The Concordat had survived through cooperation and defensive strategies. Humanity, it seemed, had something entirely different in mind. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place.